Well, folks, Donald Trump just continues to break his campaign promises, and I know that we have been talking a whole lot about Charlie Kirk's passing. We've talked a lot about that over the last week. That's dominated the news cycle. But I say to people, we got to stay focused, and the one thing that we got to do moving forward is we have to remind people, not just MAGA. I started to say MAGA, but it's not just MAGA. We have to remind everyone involved that Donald Trump just continues to break his campaign promises. He's keeping the absolute worst of his promises. The stuff he promised on the border, he's keeping that, the bad stuff. The stuff that I did catch myself agreeing with, he's breaking that. And one thing that I do agree with is I absolutely want no more wars. I am a no more wars kind of guy, and Trump ran on that. The only problem is we all knew he was full of shit, okay? And so this is pretty disturbing stuff that we're going to be covering in this story. And before we do, I just want to thank y'all so much for supporting what it is that I do here on the channel as we cruise toward 1 million subscribers. I truly appreciate all your support. So if you like this kind of content, be sure and hit that subscribe button and help us get to 1 million. We'll swap out that silver plaque for a gold one. But I really do appreciate y'all for your support. But this is, and I want to remind everybody, not just MAGA, but I want to remind the independents who stayed home. I want to remind all the people that stayed home on election day. I want to remind people on the left who wrote in third-party candidates because they were mad over certain issues. I want to remind you the alternative was not any better. So this is what Donald Trump tweeted out about Venezuela. And yeah, folks, I realize that I still say the word tweet. It'll always be Twitter to me. I mean, if Elon can't get more creative, I mean, X, really? That's the best you can do. That's the best you can do to rename a platform. No, it's Twitter. But anyway, he put this out on his Truth Social, and then it makes it to Twitter. And to me, it'll always be a tweet. We want Venezuela to immediately accept all of the prisoners and people from mental institutions, which includes the worst in the insane asylums that Venezuelan leadership has forced into the United States of America. Thousands of people have been badly hurt and even killed by these monsters. Get them the hell out of our country right now, or the price you pay will be incalculable. So that's the first one that he posted. And for everyone that said we're tired of all these wars and we don't want any more wars, he also posted this. If Afghanistan doesn't give Bagram Air Base back to those that built it, the United States of America, bad things are going to happen. I want to remind everybody the war in Afghanistan was our longest running American war. It's one that we were all against. It's those wars, Afghanistan war, the Iraq war, I was against it. I knew so many people that were against it. We were all about no more wars. But of course, Donald Trump had to just get in and bring more wars because I don't trust the guy. I don't trust anything he's going to say. So now we're going to be reading this article about what's going on in Venezuela. I'll bring this one up here for you and we'll read it together. But the U.S. military buildup in Caribbean signals broader campaign against Venezuela. Trump officials say the mission aims to disrupt the drug trade. But military officials and analysts say the real goal might be driving Venezuela's president from power. You can be the judge as to which way you think that goes. But this was written by Eric Schmidt from the New York Times. The U.S. military strikes this month on 3 boats that Trump administration officials have asserted were smuggling drugs in the Caribbean Sea, have cast a spotlight on the sizable naval armada and aerial fleet of by spy aircraft the Pentagon has dispatched to the region in which it says counter-narcotics and counterterrorism mission. Military officials, diplomats, and analysts say the main purpose of the force is to ratchet up pressure on Venezuela's president, Nicolas Maduro, as top officials in the administration call him an illegitimate leader and accuse him of directing the actions of criminal gangs and drug cartels. We're not going to have cartel operating or masquerading as government operating in our hemisphere, said Marco Rubio on Fox News. There's a reward for his capture, he said. The heavy military presence in the Caribbean, including F-35 fighters in Puerto Rico suggests the United States plans to do more than blow up small vessels, analysts said, but the scope of the operations remains unclear. The 4,500-member force currently aboard 8 warships is too small to invade Venezuela or any country harboring traffickers, and it is not operating in the main body of water to carry out a major drug interdiction campaign. That would be the Eastern Pacific Ocean, the regional experts say. So administration officials refuse to say what U.S. military action might come next. Asked of Air Force One en route back to Washington from Britain on Thursday, Trump said he had discussed regime change in Venezuela with Marco Rubio or any of his he was asked if he had discussed his regime change in Venezuela. Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, said recently that the administration was prepared to use every element of American power to stop drugs from flooding into our country and to bring those responsible to justice. In news conference this week, Mr. Maduro condemned the first strike carried out on a Venezuelan boat on September 2nd as a heinous crime and a military attack on civilians who were not at war and were not a threat to the country. He said that if the United States believed the boat passengers were drug traffickers, they should have been arrested. He accused the administration of trying to start a war. Shortly after the news conference, the U.S. Military struck a second boat. Several current and former military officials, diplomats, and intelligence officers say that while fighting drugs is the pretext for the recent attacks, the real goal is to drive Maduro from power one way or the other. So the massive naval off the coast of Venezuela and the movement of the fifth generation F-35 fighters to Puerto Rico has little to do with drug interdiction. They represent operational overkill, said Admin James Starvis, a former head of the Pentagon's Southern Command. He also said whether they are a signal to Maduro that his administration is growing serious about accomplishing either regime or behavioral change. So Marco Rubio and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth have both said the military would carry out more strikes in the coming weeks as part of what they describe as counter-narcotics and counter-terrorism campaign. The military struck a third boat on Friday, killing 3 people, Trump said. Folks, this is one of the craziest things, really, when you stop and think about how that this stuff is just happening now right out in the open. And when people like us points it out, a lot of people just shrugs it off and says that, no big deal. But this is a very big deal. Hegseth said on social media, narco-terrorists are enemies of the United States, actively bringing death to our shores. We will track them, kill them, and dismantle their networks through our hemisphere at times and place of our choosing. Well, I just want to remind y'all that, you really do need evidence on your side. And they come out and make all these bold claims and say they're going after these people, but we never actually see the evidence. And a lot of times you will catch them say, we believe or we have reason to believe that they're doing this. Well, if you have reason to believe someone's doing something, that's not a reason to just go kill the person before they even get due process. This administration has completely just disregarded due process altogether. They've completely tossed it out the door. And it's crazy to me that we live in a world where people just sits back and they're okay with this. This is not normal. It was never normal, and we have to continue to call it out. He said he would be the No More Wars president. That's one thing we could agree on. That's one thing that I could say, yeah, don't start another one. But then he hires a Fox News host, and they bring back the Department of War. And I want to bring her across one point about the whole Department of War, and I'm going to tell you why that in my mind, Department of Defense is a much better word, is a much better phrase, much better title. Here's why. We should be all about defending our country and defending democracy and defending freedom, not war. Like, you don't call it, when you say the Department of War, it makes way more sense to me that you call it the Department of Defense because you want to do everything to prevent a war. But they don't, because they just want to be able to go out there and with no judge or no jury play the executioner. And that's some real bullshit, folks. And we have got to continue to stand up and call this stuff out. These stories are breaking so fast and everything's happening so fast that I don't know how in the world Aaron Parnas pulls it off. But shout out to Aaron. He's always on top of it. We've got some major breaking news. And I'm like, does this guy ever take a day off? Does he ever have a moment to breathe? If you're listening, breathe, Aaron. I love you. We need you. Stay in the game. It's crazy at the amount of news, and it's crazy that stories like this is happening. And we can't allow ourselves to become so numb and desensitized to this stuff that we stop calling it out. We have to point it out, and we have to say out loud, this is not normal, and it never should be labeled as such.